Okay, we'd like to welcome you to our third episode of Women of Influence. We are recording and streaming Facebook Live, so you can find us at facebook.com. And good afternoon.
Hi, I'm Janine Gershon,
And I'm Taunee English.
and we are By the Numbers Lionesses. We're award-winning trusted advisors for
Accountants, attorneys, financial advisors, fiduciaries, trustees, and wealth managers. We specialize in providing real estate solutions for those who experience any of life's 5 Ds: divorce, death, disasters, disability, and downsizing.
We'd like to welcome you all to our 2020 Women of Influences Episode 3, which is preparing and recovering from the 5 Ds: divorce, disability, downsizing, disasters, and death. That's a mouthful. At some point in our lives, some of us will face some or all of the 5 Ds. And when that happens, we need to have the tools to either prepare for it or recover from it. Today, you're going to learn how to prepare and recover from the 5 Ds.
And you'll learn from our two
speakers. First, we have Amazon best-selling author of Preparing for the 5Ds, Divorce, Disability, Downsizing, Disasters, and Death, Felicia Gopal, certified financial planner of Financial Control Mastery, who works exclusively with professional and business owner women. She shows them how to handle their money using only 5 circles. And additionally, we have the author, and she also is the author of the best-selling book, The Big Secret, written alongside Jack Canfield, who is the Chicken Soup for the Soul author. And also she's written Stress-Free Divorce. Additionally, we have Elizabeth Yang with us today. And Elizabeth has been practicing law since 2007 and founded in 2011 the Law and Mediation Offices of Elizabeth Yang, a boutique family law firm. From 2016 to 2020, Elizabeth was awarded the Top 100 Civil Lawyers Award and the Top 40 Lawyers Under 40 Award by the National Trial Lawyers Association. In 2017 to 2020, Elizabeth was recognized by Thomson Reuters Super Lawyers as a rising star, ranking in her top 2.5% of lawyers in California, and also was presented with the Lawyers of Distinction Award, recognizing her as the top 10% of lawyers in the United States. Thank you so much, Felicia and Elizabeth, for agreeing to be on our show. We absolutely love you and your passion for helping people prepare and recover from life's 5Ds.
And before we begin with our two speakers, we would like to introduce one of our own Women's Council sisters, and she's president of the Delta Network, Monique Fuentes, the author of The Divorce Dare. So, Madam President, can you share with us your inspiration behind your book?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Taunee, for inviting me for this session of being an influential woman in 2020, right? And so I would like to just share a little bit about my book, The Divorce Dare. You know, about 3 years ago, after being with the same man for about 22 years, I was left with the situation of having 2 young children and on my own as a single mom, trying to navigate through these times. And I was able to say, you know what, I know I'm not alone in this journey. My life has definitely had some blessings involved, but also just through everything that I've been going through, I know I can inspire other women along with it. So I began working with a publisher about 3 years ago in my journey and started releasing my ebook series. It's one book in 15 different ebook releases. So it's basically chapters that I'm releasing. This is my 4th one that will be ready this week. And it's trying to dare you to live a better life after divorce. I have a Facebook support group that goes with it, titled the Divorce Dare Support Group. You can also find me on Instagram. So would love to, if there's anybody that you know that would benefit from having a resource for women, I started interviewing with lawyers and different resources that will help you get through this time. And I'm not alone. So we can get through this as a village of people, right? So I encourage you to follow me on different social media platforms. On Instagram, I'm under MoniqueFuentes.realtor. I'm located in Northern California, but my Facebook group is starting to go nationally. So I've got different people that have joined and want to keep increasing that market. So please reach out to me. You could put your message in the chat, and I'd love to connect with anybody that would feel benefit from this.
Thank you, Monique.
Thank you so much, author Monique Fuentes. I just posted a link where you can buy your copy of her Divorce Dare. And if you have any questions for her, please definitely put in the chat.
Yes, the first book was a new release bestseller on Amazon. So thank you.
Congratulations, Madam President. So we have Miss Felicia, and we would like to thank you again because she's also inspiration for our By the Number Lionesses slogan, because it perfectly encompasses all the real estate services Janine and I provide, which is probate, trust, conservatorship, divorce, receivership, and preparing for current disasters like COVID, which also is causing downsizing. So, Felicia, can you tell us what was your inspiration for your Amazon best-selling book?
Well, you know, I've been working in financial services for quite a while, let's put it that way. And one of the things that I just seen is a number of people who've gone through stuff in life, shall we say, you know, divorce, disability, downsizing, disasters, and death, that really just knock them off their game. And they really just have to recover from that. So that was really just what I've noticed in my practice that I think was really affecting a lot of the women that I was coming in contact with.
Okay.
So
and
what
are,
go ahead.
Okay. No. Sorry.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the next 30 minutes, and I just want to make sure that everybody who is online has got a paper and pen so that they're ready to take some notes, because I will be rocketing through the time that we're going to be spending together. And I first want you to just write this down. This is the first writer downer, which is divorce, disability, downsizing, disasters, and death. And as everybody has kind of alluded to, all of us have been through something like that. We had Monique, who's been through a divorce. My mother went through a divorce, which was really kind of my inspiration for this whole thing. But the reality is, no matter what you've gone through, many of us still have the dream of being financially free. And what my program is really about is helping you take that from a dream to reality, so that you can stop working sooner, so that you can travel the world, and you can leave a legacy for the next generation. So can you put a heck yeah in the chat if you are one of those people that wants any of those things: stop working sooner, travel the world, or leave a legacy? Yeah, that's it. So when I was in college, my parents got
Gloria.
And my mother went from having a husband who had taken care of her for 20 plus years, very much like Monique. And then she was really just struggling. She was a little bit older than Monique, so she didn't have young children, but she had 2 in college, and she had another one that was getting ready to go into college. And what I noticed is I just saw her struggling, really just struggling with what was going on with her. And later on, she talked about how going through a divorce really just knocked her off her game and really just knocked her confidence off. And so she was really scared about being able to retire, and she had a secret fear of being a bag lady in retirement. And this is something that a lot of women will say is something that they're concerned about. And what I want to tell everybody who is here today is there is really good news, because you can create your own path to financial freedom, and it's really attached to who your husband is, was, will be, whether or not the economy is up or down, and whether or not there's a pandemic going on like now. So it's really about keeping these 5 steps that I'm going to be going through today in mind, so that you can move forward. So I work with people like you have gathered together in your audience, Janine and Taunee. It's really smart, educated professionals who are want to devote their time, energy, and efforts into people and organizations that are important to them. They want to make sure that they're not constrained by a paycheck or limited to 2-week vacation, or they're not following what society dictates is the path to success. You know the one. Go to college, graduate, get a good job, work real hard, retire. Have anybody ever heard anything like that? I know you have. So that's what that is. So we've got Taunee over there raising your hand. That's so true. So I want you to put a yes or a heck yes in the chat box for the next question. So how many of you already have a financial plan that you're already doing your best to follow, where you've got some savings and you feel pretty good about that? So a yes or a heck yes. Okay, good. So for the others of you,
All right.
Say,
Got some yeses coming in.
I knew we got some yeses in there. You got a smart and educated crowd. So how many of you would love to know what you need to do in terms of putting together a plan for financial freedom, but you're not exactly sure how to do it? Yeah, so I should get some more yeses from people who are there. So the good news is whether you answer yes to the first question or yes to the second question, it doesn't matter. We're going to be going through a number of different things because even if you're already in good shape, I will tell you some things that will help you elevate what you're already doing naturally well. And for those of you who are scratching your head because no one's ever talked to you about this, well, you're going to be able to get a good start, and that is good news. So we'll be able to elevate what you're currently doing or get you started. So Taunee, do you know what 96% of the population does that when they get a paycheck?
Spend it?
Yeah, that's exactly.
Pretty much. Spend it on their bills. Then the first thing is spend on bills and things they like to do and maybe save for the future.
That's exactly the case. So the other group is about 4% of the population, and they're the wealth builders. They're saving some portion of their income first, just like you said, and then they're spending what's left over. And you want to know if you're in the same category as those wealth builders. I've got a quick assessment. I've got 7, 8 questions. So I want you to put a yes or a no in the chat box or on a piece of paper in front of you. First one is, have you got a proven, repeatable system to build your path to financial freedom? Yes or no? The second one is, do you have an honor yourself fund that allows you to invest in yourself? Yes or no?
I have that one. I have that.
You got that? Good for you. I love hearing that. Do you have a core community of wealth builders around who surround you, who keep you on track? Yes or no? So if you got Taunee and Janine on your team, you've got a core group of people who are supporting you. Are you consistently saving some portion? There you go. I'm seeing it. I see that. Are you consistently saving some portion of your income? Yes or no? Do you have an easy to follow spending plan so that you know that you're on track? Yes or no? Or how soon, or do you know when you're going to be able to retire and whether or not you're going to be financially free? Yes or no? Yeah. And then
that's a lot of yes or no. That's a lot of investment questions.
Yes. There's a number of yeses, there's a number of nos, and the last one is, do you have assets making passive income for you regularly, even while you're sleeping?
Oh.
Yes or no?
Felicia, do you have these questions anywhere, since I couldn't write that fast? I'm really fast. I couldn't write that fast.
I talk fast. I got it. So I will give that to Janine and Taunee, and then you'll have those questions.
I would love to have that because those are excellent. I mean, I've heard a lot of them, but there are a few I never heard of. So thank you.
Got it. Perfect. Good. So let me just tell you.
And those questions, by the way, Mindy, that's going to be part of her steps, because she's going to tell us right now about her steps that she used to help people navigate the 5 Ds. So if you could do that for us, please.
Oh, absolutely. I
Felicia?
will definitely do that. So I just want to tell you a little bit more about why I got into this. This is really because my father and mother got divorced when I was in college. And my father, and what happened is, later on in life, my father ended up with dementia, and I took 7 years out of my financial planning practice to take care of him, which is something that many of us often will do. And I thought it was a temporary, situation, but it turned out to be a 7-year break from my financial planning thing. And when I got back, it was like the whole world had changed. People weren't asking for they weren't asking for retirement help. Instead, what they wanted to know was how they could become financially free, so that they weren't devastated by one of the 5 Ds. And it made me go back and start to think about, what did I do to make sure that I was on my own path to financial freedom? So what I want to do is just have you write down one more thing. So the next thing I want you to write down is, the road to financial freedom is hard. So I know, because I've done this for a while,
the road to financial freedom
is hard. So nobody wants to hear that,
hard.
And nobody wants to do that. Nobody wants to do that, but I want you to write it down anyways, because that's what we were all thinking. But here's the good news. The good news is, you do not have to be special to be financially free. You don't actually have to be particularly smart, though I know you've got a smart group here, Taunee. But the foundation of financial freedom, it really begins with, it's really about a system that you want to have. So that same sentence, the road to financial freedom is hard, I want you to cross out the hard and say it's a system. You'll see that my assistant has put that in there. So what I want to do is, I want to just kind of go through and talk about 3 of the 5 steps. So the first thing I normally talk about is goals. So that's the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about. And so with goals, I'm not going to really dig into this, because, but the thing that I would really have you consider is, you cannot be financially free if you have not set that as your goal. Cannot happen, doesn't happen. So I want you.
Very true.
I want you to think first and foremost about what is your goals. So we're not going to spend a whole lot of time with it, but I want you to sit there in your chair at your office and at home, wherever you are, and think about, what are some of your goals? Do you want to have a certain amount in the bank? Do you want to have a certain amount in savings? Do you want to pay off a certain amount? I want you to anchor to this and think about what's going to get you the most excited. What is going to leave you free and excited? And I want you to jot that down. So unfortunately, in the time that we have, that's all I'm going to say about goal setting. The next thing I want to talk about is having the right money mindset. Money mindset is really important. When we were 3 or 4, we believed we could do absolutely anything. Wouldn't you agree, Taunee and Janine?
Yes, I do agree.
Yeah, we thought we could be anything. We could be princesses, we could be astronauts, we could be doctors. It didn't really matter. But sometime in probably when we're 6 or 7, maybe 8 or 9, we had some well-meaning adults in our lives who told us we couldn't do certain things. And they became fixed in our mindsets that we couldn't do that thing. And so I find that when I'm working with women, one of the things that got fixed is, I'm not good with numbers, and we live our whole lives out inside of that. So I want to have you play a game with me. And the game is really this. I want you to think about, for those people who say that I'm not good with numbers, and if you're in the chat box, I want you to put a heck yeah, that's one of your money beliefs. I want you to do 11 times 2. So 11 times 2 is 22. And we all know that. So how about 11 times 9? That's 99. We all know that. But how about if I asked you, what is 11 times 13? Taunee, do you know that off the top of your head?
Well, I have a phone. with a calculator.
That's exactly it. A lot of people, when they hear people ask this question, they start to reach for their phone. But the reality is you don't need to reach for your phone. Really, all you got to do is understand the trick and how it works. And how it works is, what you want to do is you want to line up the 11 and the 13. So 11, and bring down the 3. So you're bringing down the 3, and then you're going to add the 1 and the 3, and that's the 4. And then you want to bring down the 1. So the number is 143. So you want to definitely do that. The reason I'm talking about
Wait a second here. Wait a
Okay,
second.
good.
So Janine, did you follow that? Because Janine's our numbers person.
She's
Did
a
you follow
numbers person.
her how she did
So the thing that I want you to kind of take away from that is it's about learning the trick of how to do the mental math there. And so what I'm saying to you is what I teach in my course is how to do the mental math and how to break up some money mindsets that you had. So if you have a money mindset that you're not good with numbers, and I can show you, if I had more time, how to do that trick, no matter how big the number is times 11, what you will find is that you are capable of much more than you thought that you were capable of. And that's really what I'm looking to do. So in my course, what I talk about in the money mindset is I talk about the confidence that women gain when they get their money mindset in order. I talk about the things that keep them from having the right mindset. And for many women, one of the things that keeps you from having the right money mindset is, first and foremost, you think to yourself, you know what? I'm either not good with numbers, and so that particular exercise was really just to show you that you really could be good with numbers. And the other thing is there's just mental stuff. So there's emotional triggers that we all go through that set. So anybody grow up with a mother like mine who used to say when things were tough, she would go shopping, so that's kind of a particular money mindset that some of the women that I know, and I see some smiles over there, women kind of go through that keeps them stuck and in the same place. So the final one, especially in this era, is the reason some women are surprised, if you will, when they go through divorce, is they had a feeling that their husband was going to take care of that. But the reality is Prince Charming isn't always charming all of your life and all of the time that you're married to him. And so if you think that your husband is going to take care of it and you defer to him and he turns out to no longer be Prince Charming, then you've really got a problem on your hands. So I think it's really important for you to kind of get your money mindset in order, because the truth is you can't predict your future. You can't predict whether or not you're going to go through a downsizing divorce. And many of the women who are on this phone call are very, very, very much aware of that. So the next thing that I talk about as part of my course is I talk about savings and cash flow. And again, we don't have a whole lot of time, so I'm just going to give you some highlights. But when I think about your savings, I tell people that what you want to do is put some money aside. I tell the story that that one of the reasons why a lot of people don't have money saved up is they've got a lot of other bills. And I say you've got to start with your Honor Yourself Fund. And your Honor Yourself Fund is the money you're putting away to honor yourself. And it's just a starting point. And when I first got started with saving, I could only put aside $5 a month. People always ask me, why bother when you're talking about $5 a month? But I wanted to get into the habit of honoring myself. And so I say that a good starting point for everybody is an Honor Yourself Fund.
I agree.
Because the other thing that happens in this category in particular, under the cash flow part of it, is people are often saying that small things don't matter. And there's a guy by the name of, if I ask you the question, is $10,000 for a Starbucks coffee ridiculous cup of coffee, most of us would say that that's a ridiculous amount of money. But what a guy by the name of David Bach came up with is he came up with this calculator that says if you spent $5 a day and you were making 6% interest and you did it over 5 years, it would cost you $10,000 for that same cup of coffee.
Wow.
Now, I'm seeing some shaking of the heads too. That is a ridiculous amount of money. So if you're wondering where your money's going, sometimes what you got to do is pay attention to the small things because they do matter. So you have to ask yourself, what's it costing you? Is it costing you peace of mind? Is it costing you sleep at night? Is it costing you anxiety? Is it costing you stress? There's a lot of things that it could cost you by not having these things in order and not having your path. So I don't want you to bury your head in the sand. For some of us, we have done that for way too long. It's time to raise up, put the head up, and start to move in the right direction. So what I want to do next is to just kind of talk about what we went over. So we talked about part of my program is talking about your goals. It's about your mindset. It's about savings and cash flow. There's some more things that I talk about as part of the program, but unfortunately in the time that I have, I don't have time to kind of delve into it. You want to make sure that you are thinking about, what do I got to do to be in that 4% category of people so that you are one of those people who was able to do what you want, when you want, with who you love for the rest of your life. That is really important to the people who are taking my course, and I imagine it'd be really important to you. So think about, what are the biggest myths that are holding you back, some that you have internally and some that you don't. And then, as I said, I went through the 5 steps of my financial freedom plan. So you have a choice at this point, and the choice is really about what direction you're going to go. So I'm going to pause and just give you a time to ask your next question, Taunee.
Okay, so can you tell us about the resources that you're set up for our audience and how they can get them?
Absolutely. So thank you for asking that. So the first thing that I have is a gift from Felicia. So you can go to my website, giftfromfelicia.com, and there what you'll be taken to is an application. And the application is really about helping me understand whether or not I'm a good fit for what it is that you do, and you and me to get a good understanding. So there's probably about 10 questions that you would ask there. So it's really designed for people who are trying to assess whether or not they want to work with me. And it gives me an opportunity to see whether or not what you're up to is a good fit. Now, if I have said something today during today's presentation that sounds interesting, then the second thing that you can do is you can go to financialmastery.com/FFF3. And there I have my Financial Freedom Fundamentals course, which it starts tomorrow. I realize that for many of you, it's short notice, but it does start tomorrow, and I invite you to get in touch. So you'll hear a little bit more about what all is involved. And some of what's involved in that is, the program value altogether would have been $5,000 if you were meeting with me on a one-on-one basis. But it includes Module 1, which sets up the framework, and Module 2, which is the clarity that you need in order to kind of go forward. This is about your money mindset. This is about your cash flow, your savings galore, and paying off your debt, which is often the thing that keeps you from getting to where you want to be. So
Wow, that is a pretty good program.
It is a pretty good program. And I tell you, I thought about you and Janine, and I thought about your audience, and I said to myself, I wanted to put together the best deal that I can for you. So basically what I'm doing is, for all of those services, I'm putting that together for your audience for $620 for the premium version of that. And the thing that's really cool about that, Taunee, is it's not just that, but I also include one-on-one with me for a $500 value. In addition to that, I have another bonus, and this is what one of my clients had to say about working with me. I also include a money mindset training by another financial professional. And then this is what another client had to say about me. And then the final piece to that is I have a weekly Getting It Done call. So this is going to be the last time that you sign up for a course where you enroll in it and you do nothing with it. So if you would come to the Getting It Done calls, you will definitely have an opportunity to get done the things that I talk about in the course. So the last thing that I want to just kind of leave with you is something that one of my clients said to me, which is that I do a really good job about taking an intimidating topic, financial services, financial planning, financial freedom, and make it understandable. And you can't beat that. So here's the thing that I want to just kind of leave you with is, you know, I want you to think about what would your life be like if you weren't stressed about money, if you weren't concerned about money, if you could just live in ease and freedom. And really, that's what I want for you. I want the best for everybody who is on the line, so you can stop worrying, you can take control of yourself and your finances, and you're free to be yourself. So again, my name is Felicia Gopal, and I am the president and founder of Financial Control Mastery. And my contact information is here, and my assistant is putting it in the chat. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be on, and I hope this was a tremendous value for everybody who was here and got the opportunity to listen.
It was, Felicia. Thank you so much. And I also put in the chat along with Alexis that, you know, where they could find out more about you and your contact information and where to sign up for your courses. So we really, really appreciate you coming and, you know, educating us on financial freedom despite the 5 Ds. Yeah. So thank you so much for that. And now I would like to turn it over to my By the Number Lioness partner, Janine.
Thank you, Taunee. So Elizabeth, thank you again for agreeing to be one of our featured speakers. We enjoy working as part of a collaborative team with attorneys like yourself and helping our clients, especially in divorce cases. We provide highly researched and well-documented property evaluations to mitigate the battles over listing prices. And additionally, we sell real properties at the highest possible price within the shortest of amount of time with the least amount of inconvenience and headaches. So Elizabeth, we know your first adventure to becoming an author was co-writing the Big Secret book with the Jack Canfield of the Chicken Soup franchise. How did that come about?
Well, I have a copy right here. Great to be on here with everyone. Oh my gosh, my virtual background's messing it up. So yeah, The Big Secret is a venture with Jack Canfield, who's the author of the Chicken Soup for the Soul books. And it talks about my own journey as someone who's gone through the divorce process. Mine lasted 4 years, and how, you know, big challenges in life are actually blessings in disguise. So anytime you reach a breakdown or, you know, some kind of disaster in life, embrace it, because there's a rainbow right after the thunderstorm. So this book talks about that as the big secret, and it goes through what I went through, you know, my personal journey. And I wrote it in hopes of inspiring other people who are going through the same struggles in life.
Thank you. So now can you tell us what was your inspiration for your best-selling book, Stress-Free Divorce?
Yeah, absolutely. So as a divorce attorney, you know, because after I went through my own 4-year divorce, I became very well versed in the arena of family law. You know, I did not practice family law before I went through that. So after battling for 4 years in court and spending a lot of attorney fees, going through a lot of different law firms, at the very end, we ended up settling our case through collaborative divorce and mediation and communication. You know, lots of different skills that are not taught usually by attorneys, you know, or skills that are not taught in schools. You know, with all my years of education, no one taught me those skills. So this book talks about those skills that you can use to help settle your case amicably and quickly, so that you don't have to go through this 4-year, you know, very expensive and very stressful process that I went through.
Well, you know, all very interesting, Elizabeth. And now, without further ado, why don't you share your presentation with us?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks again for having me on. Thanks everyone here for joining us today. Great job on your presentation, Felicia. I learned a lot from you, during that short amount of time. So today I'm going to be presenting, as a divorce attorney on the different legal aspects of the divorce process, giving you guys a basic foundation of what someone who's going through the process has to watch out for in terms of divorce law. And then I'm going to go into like some of the basic bullet points of stress-free divorce, how to go through the mediation process, how to like what are the 5 love languages, for a marriage to succeed. Yeah, Monique knows what I'm talking about. And, and also like the recent trends like that this year with the pandemic has been creating. There's been a lot of developments due to COVID. I'm sure a lot of you guys have heard of the divorce rate increasing this year. Well, it's not just rumors, it's actually very true. And it's keeping our office busier than ever. We've had to hire more people to handle all the increasing divorce cases. So it's a reality, it's not rumors. So I will go ahead and share my screen now so that you guys can see my presentation, and we're going to talk about the basics of California law. I'm located in Los Angeles, and the law differs from state to state. So I don't know where you guys are located, but I'm in California, so I'm going to be presenting on California law. So can everyone see my screen with my presentation that says California family law and recent COVID-19 effects on it? All right, so moving right along to the first slide. So this slide talks about demographics trends, okay? A lot of you guys have probably heard that the divorce rate is super high. You probably don't know exactly what it is. Well, in California, it's over 60%. Across the nation, it's over 50%. And during this pandemic, it's probably gone up higher. I don't know the exact numbers now, but it's probably higher than 60%. And that's for first-time marriages. For second-time marriages, it's 70% or higher. And for third-time marriages, it's 85% or higher. So I guess people don't learn, the more times they get married, the more easily they're able to say the word divorce off the tip of their tongue. So it's not the more times you get married, you learn your lesson. It's the other way around. And unfortunately, a third of American children are going to grow up with only one parent, especially if they are from poorer neighborhoods, or minority children. That's just how it is today. We actually represent lots of clients who are not married, but they do have child support and child custody issues, because those issues can arise, as long as you have children with another person. You don't need to be married to go through that family law process. And just keep in mind that there are statistics showing that the divorce rate is declining, but it's not because people are getting along. It's because less and less millennials are getting married. They see their parents getting divorced, they see their friends getting divorced, and so it's like very discouraging. And so they're getting, they're choosing, to cohabitate and not to get married. That's like the trend. And I'm working on my 3rd book right now. It's called Social Marriage. It's a new concept that I'm sharing with the world, because that's like the trend nowadays. People are getting socially married rather than legally married. So if you're interested in that book, that website is socialmarriagebook.com, if you want to pre-order yours. So evolution of divorce and child custody. Right now, the law has shifted to a very child-centered focus, which is great. If anyone goes to court for a child custody battle, the courts look at what's in the best interest of the child. Mom is going to come in and say, oh, I want this because, such and such reason. Or dad's going to come in and say, well, I want this time for what and what reason. The judges don't care what mom and dad want. They come in because the children are not represented. The children are too young to speak for themselves. And actually, if you're under the age of 14, you're not even allowed to testify in court. And so the judges come in and they make their decisions based on what they think is in the best interest of the children. And this is a very subjective doctrine, and that's why cases vary on a case-to-case basis, and judges, given the same facts, will come up with different orders, because they're all human and they have their different opinions and their different backgrounds. So we always encourage our clients, if you guys can reach a custody agreement outside of court, do it. Because if you go to court and a judge, they're like a third party stranger. They have no idea how your lives are. They hear out your case for however long you get to present to them in court, and then they're going to make a decision that you have to follow for a very long time. So why would you want a stranger to make decisions for you if you can work it out yourselves? So we always encourage settling outside of court rather than have a third party judge, make the decisions for them. In California is a community property state. And what that means is if you're legally married with someone, automatically all property that's obtained after marriage is all considered owned by both of you guys. Even if it's like, if you buy a car after you get married and you only buy it under your name, doesn't matter who the title is under, your spouse gets half of that car or whatever asset it is when you guys are divorcing. So that's what community property means. California is also a no-fault divorce state. That means that they don't look at whose fault it is when you guys get divorced. You just need to, file under irreconcilable differences without giving a reason. And people, usually think, oh, my spouse cheated on me, so, I should have the upper hand. The courts in California don't look at any of that. That's what it means by no fault divorce. So keep that in mind. There are other states in the US that do have, different laws, but in California, they don't want to go into all the facts of, who had an affair, or, who's telling the truth or all that. So it's all irrelevant in terms of determining child custody and division of assets. So this slide talks about COVID-19 effects on divorce. China's divorce rate, they had COVID before us. So back in like February, March, when we went into lockdown and they were reopening, their divorce rates were spiking. Like 300 couples are reported to have registered for a divorce, and the line to the courthouse was out the door. It's just because of a lot of reasons. The unemployment rate is at an all-time high. Living in confined quarters because of the quarantine, made a lot of people realize that they don't want to be with this person. Before quarantine, a lot of couples, they would go to work in the daytime, at night they'll watch TV, and then go to sleep, and it's easy to avoid any problems in the marriage. But now, they're together 24/7. So it made it a lot quicker for couples to pull the trigger. And here in the US, divorce attorneys across the board are seeing an uptick in inquiries. We're getting calls 24/7. We're getting inquiries on Yelp, on Google, a lot of them at nighttime, 10 p.m., 11 p.m., midnight. We're getting a lot of those inquiries, and that's when, the couples are fighting. So they're not rumors, it's reality. So one of the biggest, family code sections that are applied in the divorce case for child custody is Family Code 3011. And it talks about different factors that the court has to look at when deciding child custody. Okay, so child custody is one of 4 issues that a couple needs to resolve in a divorce case. So I try to simplify it for my clients, and I break it down to just 4 issues to get a case settled. So the first issue is child custody. The second issue is child support. And the third issue is spousal support, otherwise known as alimony. And the fourth issue is how to divide all the assets and debts. And with a couple that don't have kids, then you're down to 2 issues instead of 4 issues, because you don't have to worry about child custody and child support. All right, but for everyone else who do have children, just think about it as 4 issues. And if you can reach a resolution on 4 issues, then you can go through what's called an uncontested divorce process. which means that you don't have to go to court. You don't need a judge to rule on anything. You just submit your paperwork, you get a stamp, and 6 months later, your divorce will be finalized. All right, so 4 issues, remember that. So in terms of the first issue, child custody, the court's gotta look at the health, safety, and welfare of the children, the nature and amount of contact with both parents. You know, if one parent is a workaholic or traveling a lot for work, then they're likely gonna have less custody time with their children. Use of alcohol and substances are also looked at as well, but it's in terms of whether they're using it in front of the kids and if they're affecting the kids. Because I've seen cases where, you know, mom or dad are using substances, but they're using it out of when they don't have the kids in their custody, and the courts will still say, oh yeah, then, you know, they can still have custody because it's not affecting the kids. So all these factors, you got to see how it's actually affecting your children, you know, and of course, considerations of abuse and domestic violence are also taken into consideration. And I'm gonna also talk about the rise in domestic violence during this pandemic on a future slide. All right, and California Family Code 3040 talks about how the court considers, among other factors, which parent is more likely to allow the child frequent and continued contact with the non-custodial parent. So this talks about co-parenting. You know, I'm sure you guys know of very controlling parents who want to like do everything for their kids, you know, who want to control what the other parent does, and you know, how often they get to interact with the children, like control every single aspect. Well, that's actually going to work against them in court, because if they're too controlling and they don't co-parent well with the other parent, the courts will take away custody from that parent if they're not letting the other parent see the children or have frequent contact. So whichever parent is a better person at co-parenting, then they're likely going to be the primary custodian, because the courts will trust that person more to make sure the kids see both parents. So that's 3040. 3042 talks about how a child's got to be 14 or older in California in order to testify in court. So when they're 14 or older, they can go to court and they can tell the judge, I want to live with mom or I want to live with dad, and provide their reasons. And it's not just to say that, you know, if a child wants to be with mom or dad, they're going to get their wish granted. The judge, of course, looks at the reasons too. So if, you know, a child says, oh, I want to be with mom because, you know, she, you know, lets me play video games, and dad is like a lot more strict and I have to do homework at dad's house all the time. Well, that's not going to play out, because the judge can see right through that and know, like, you know, what the kids are thinking. So it's got to be valid reasons. Like, oh, if I go to mom's house, you know, she's always working and I don't have food and dad actually feeds me, you know, then that's going to be taken into consideration. For children that are under 14, you might be asking, what about those kids? You know, how do I get their wants to be, to let the judge know what they want? Well, there is a parental assessment, a PPA, where the judge can nominate a third-party evaluator to come into the picture and go to the homes of the parents and interview the parents, interview the children, write up a report, and let the judge know what the findings are. So that's a way for children under the age of 14 to be interviewed and have a report be given to the judge. Otherwise, if the child wants to testify in court, they got to be 14. Also, there's like a lot of different terminology in terms of custody. There's legal custody, there's physical custody, there's joint custody, there's sole custody. So a lot of people get all those terms confused. So just really quickly to explain this portion, legal custody talks about who gets to make the decisions for the children. You know, if you want to go get a passport, or if you want to like decide which doctor the child sees, that's legal custody. So most of the time, legal custody is joint legal custody, because the courts want both parents to work together to decide, you know, make decisions for their children. Physical custody is where you hear about like percentages, 50-50, 70-30, 80-20, because that has to do with where the children live. If the child is with mom 50% of the time and living at dad's house 50% of the time, that's 50-50 custody. So a lot of times people are like, oh, I want like sole custody. If they're talking about sole legal custody, that's probably not going to happen, because courts usually will only give sole legal custody if like one parent has abandoned the family, left the country, or just says like, I don't want anything to do with raising my kids, or they're in jail, like something like extreme. But for the most part, it's legal, it's joint legal custody. So when my clients say like, oh, I want sole custody, I'm usually asking them, is it joint? Are you talking about physical custody or are you talking about legal custody? And then explain the difference. So hopefully that clears up these terms for you guys who haven't understood the difference before. Custody.
It does. Thank you. It does clear it up. Yeah, it does clear it up.
Okay, awesome. And if there's any questions in the chat box, if feel free to just ask questions. I can't see the chat box, so Taunee, let me know if anyone's asking any questions. This slide just talks about the custody evaluation process, where the court nominated evaluator will go into the homes of the parents and do interviews with the parents and the children. Sometimes if there's a psychologist involved, they will use psychological tests and other records to come up with their written report and present that to the judge. And the judge will review all that in terms of deciding, what custody order to grant. And then here's like some special issues that are also taken into consideration. We have like some clients who have autistic children, or special education needs that need more time. They can't just be treated like regular children and go to public schools. So that's got to be taken into consideration. Maybe one parent doesn't work and gets to stay home with the special education needs children, and so they might have more custody time. Step parents are taken into consideration. If there's like abusive step parents, that's definitely taken into consideration. Allegations of sexual abuse are very seriously taken, and we handle child protective services cases too, where child protective services will step in and they could even remove the children, put them into foster families if it gets really bad. So those are all possibilities. Some people don't know that their children can be taken away if they're not a good parent. So it's definitely a reality. Domestic violence, restraining orders, kidnapping, move-aways, all of these are special issues that are handled in child custody cases. So that's all for child custody. That's our first issue out of the 4 issues. The second issue, which I mentioned earlier, is child support. So child support is handled with a calculator that the government has created. It's called the DissoMaster, and it can be accessed online. Just go on Google and search California DissoMaster, and you'll be able to access that. Oh, is someone talking? I hear someone talking. Maybe just mute them. Yeah, it sounds like background noise, but I'll keep going. So child support, the factors that go into the calculator are how many kids, the custody time, percentage of time spent with each parent, and then also each party's income. So the more you make, unfortunately, the more you got to pay for child support. And because custody is also a factor, there's unfortunately parents will actually go to court and they will fight for custody, even though they don't really care about being with their kids, but they will fight for custody just because they don't want to pay as much support. They rather pay a nanny to watch their kids for them than pay support to the other parent. So that's like an
Elizabeth.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Liz. We do have a question from Taunee. What if both parents are still living together? Can they file for divorce without going to court?
Yeah, absolutely. So living together versus not living together is completely irrelevant from filing for divorce. There are a lot of divorced parents who do live together, and there are also parents who don't live together, and are married. So it's 2 different things. There's no requirement for parents to be living together or not living together. I hope that answers the question. Great question. So this is child support, all right? So child support, Disto Master takes into account number of children, custody time, and income, right? And a lot of self-employed people, they will try to hide their income, especially if they're like, getting cash. And sometimes it's even more expensive for the other party to try to prove the income, have to hire a private investigator, track cash transactions. It's just like really hard. I would just encourage them, like, don't spend that money. Just focus on making your own income and supporting your own kids. If they don't want to pay up, karma will get them. So that's how you calculate child support. Alimony is very similar. It's also calculated using Disto Master, and this is the third item in the divorce, right? So child support, child custody, and alimony. So alimony, for marriages that are under 10 years, it's usually paid for half of the length of the marriage. So if you're married for 8 years, then you pay 4 years of alimony. But for marriages that are over 10 years, then it's considered a long-term marriage, and the courts can maintain a lifetime jurisdiction over alimony. So you can pay it all the way until you have no more income, until you retire. And sometimes even if you retire, if you have like rental properties, the income still keeps going. So basically you're like paying for the rest of your life. So that's like for long-term marriages. Like when Kobe Bryant and his wife were like, talking about divorce during that time, she made sure she waited until 10 years plus 1 day to go and file divorce in the courts. She wanted to make sure she was going to get that permanent alimony order from the courts. But, Kobe was smarter. He bought her like this really expensive ring and then, dismissed the divorce case. So they stayed together. But that's why like, this 10-year mark is like a really important factor in terms of calculating alimony. All right, so that's the third part. And then the fourth part is division of assets and debts. So that's where prenups and postnups are really helpful, because if you have a prenup or a postnup, you actually sit down and you talk about all your assets and you talk about who gets what in case of a divorce, and you write everything down so it's crystal clear. And then when you go through a divorce, you don't have to worry about negotiating, when feelings are like super stressed out and emotional. If you don't have a prenup or a postnup, then California is a community property state again. So everything will be divided 50-50. And, some people will say, oh, well, I got this property before marriage. And then you have to go and get a forensics accountant and calculate, how much was it worth back then? How much is it worth now? Which part is separate property? Which part is community property? It can get really messy. So we highly encourage getting a prenup. A prenup is before marriage, a postnup is after marriage. It's the same terms and agreement. It's just when it's signed. One's before marriage and one's after marriage. So more COVID-19 effects. So because income is a factor of support calculations, which we just covered, a lot of people's incomes are changing during this pandemic. So we're getting a lot of requests to modify and change support orders. Maybe before the judge ordered one of the parents to pay $1,000 a month, and then now all of a sudden, that parent has no job. So he or she's got to go back to court and say, look, I can't afford the $1,000 a month. We got to change it. So a lot of, these kind of cases are happening during the pandemic. The unemployment rate increased from 4.4% to 5.3%. So it's like all-time high. And, when the courts reopened back in June, and there was like a huge spike in the number of divorce cases, number of RFOs filed, because of all the changes that are happening this year. So it's unfortunate, but it's keeping our firm busy. All the court forms can be found online. For California forms, just go to this website and you can find all the forms. Family law is very form-based. So whoever files first is called the petitioner. Whoever responds is the respondent. A lot of people ask me, is there like a benefit to being the petitioner or the respondent? There really is no benefit. The courts is just a name for the parties, but they treat both parties the same. The only benefit I can think of for being a petitioner is you have control of when it's filed, whereas the respondent, if you want to wait for your spouse to file, who knows when they will file or get around to it. Once the petition is filed and served on the respondent, they have 30 days to respond. If they don't respond, then you can proceed with a default judgment. So you don't need them to sign anything in order to get divorced. You know, you can get a default judgment without having a signature. The filing fee is $435. If you're low income, you can apply for a fee waiver and get that $435 fee waived. And in California, there is a mandatory waiting period of 6 months. So even if you agree on everything, you still have to wait 6 months in order to get divorced. You know, that's just a cooling down period. And it's because too many couples file and then they change their minds, they dismiss it. So courts don't want to process so many like divorce and remarriage paperwork. So they're like, we're going to force you to wait 6 months. If you still want to get divorced after 6 months, then we'll let you. So this is the slide I was talking about for domestic violence. So unfortunately, domestic abuse has risen, not just in the US, but worldwide since coronavirus has started. You know, I heard a lot of cases like in Turkey, like, you know, there was a record number of wives being killed by their husbands, in fact, you know, just because of the culture there. You know, the United Nations warns that 6 months of coronavirus lockdowns could lead to 31 million cases of domestic violence. And police has seen a rise in domestic violence calls, you know, due to the quarantine and lockdown. You know, we're getting a lot of domestic violence calls. And also there's a rise in child abuse cases too. So just a lot of stuff happening during this pandemic that, you know, maybe you guys are aware of, maybe you guys aren't. So just keep that in mind and, you know, just have a lot of empathy for, you know, what folks are doing. You know, if someone like cuts you off on the freeway, instead of honking at them or giving them the middle finger, you know, just think that, you know, maybe they're just going through something really horrible due to the pandemic, and show some empathy during this time. All right, so I think my time is up. So
one question before you end. Monique Fuentes has a question about, you know, can a pre or postnuptial in California include a clause where infidelity is a cause of divorce, that the cheating spouse doesn't get opportunity for alimony? Oh, I like that question.
Yeah, you can actually put any terms you want into the divorce, but just keep in mind that into the prenup. But just keep in mind that prenups. So when you sign a prenup, you know, you don't file it anywhere. You get it stamped and notarized. You know, the attorney sign, and then you just keep it in your drawer or in your like safety deposit box. You hang on to it. No one sees it. No judge sees it. So if you never get divorced, great, it never comes into play. But if you do go through the divorce process, that's when the judge will actually look at the prenup, and then they'll deem it enforceable, valid or invalid. And if they say, oh, I don't like these terms, you know, they're too strict or they're not reasonable, they can say it's invalid. And then all of a sudden your prenup is void. So you don't even know that until you go through the divorce process. There's no guarantee on the validity of a prenup. That's why the social marriage concept is so popular right now.
I can understand that. Okay, well, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I mean, I put in the chat box your information, which is also reflected here on your slide and everything. So you guys can go to her website. Also, I put a link to her book where you can find her books on stress-free divorce, and also the website for her new book that's coming out, which is socialmarriage.com.
Socialmarriagebook.com.
So we would like, oh, sorry, did I miss something there? Let me fix that.
Social marriage.
Thank you.
Book.
Social book.com.
Yeah.
Okay.
We also have an Instagram. If you guys want to follow us, it's just Yang Law Offices. That's our Instagram account.
That's great. Well, thank you everyone for attending our 2020 Women of Influences episode 3, Preparing and Recovering from the 5 Ds, Divorce, Disability, Downsizing, Disasters, and Death. We'll be emailing you all the recording of the event along with the contact information of all our amazing speakers.
And also, I put in the chat box too, it says, please be sure to follow us by the number LIONESSES so that you can keep updated on our upcoming events. We do have one coming up on October 21st, which we're co-hosting, called Landlord Solution for those who are tired of being landlords, especially in this COVID time. So we will have not only financial advisors speaking on 1031 exchange alternatives, we also are offering CPAs free continuing education credit. So we were explaining how landlords can keep their capital gains tax treatment without having to exchange for like. So we'll be talking about that. We will also have rock star landlord attorney Dennis Block, who he brags all the time that he has evicted more tenants than any other human on this planet. And he will be talking about the loopholes around the CARES Act and how, really to protect the landlord, since most of it, of course, is protecting the tenants, which we totally understand about COVID, but we also realize some tenants are taking advantage of the situation. So please click on the links to RSVP for this event, and we want you to enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.